Coming up this Wednesday on Beyond the Vibe, I'm joined by Tagore of The Treatment. After that, of course, you went and opened for like Kiss, Alice Cooper, Mötley Crüe. You were quite a young band as well at that point. I mean, what was that time like for you? Because it seemed from the outside, you know, this is happening quite quickly.
It honestly, if it felt quick from the outside, from the inside, it was like a tornado. It was so incredibly quick. It was incredible, honestly. I remember it was halfway through that tour, there were two of us who turned 21.
Wow.
So I was 20 because we weren't allowed to drink anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember being on tour, there was a really bizarre halfway point where all of a sudden it became legal what we were doing.
Never surrender. Take the day. Never surrender.
We're on at Nottingham. We set up on stage. We sound check, and the tour manager comes out and he's like, "No, show's not going ahead."
Wow.
What do you mean the show's not going ahead? Like, I can hear 500 fans outside.
Yeah.
And this is probably 50 minutes before doors, I reckon.
Wow.
And for us, it was just, we were like, oh my God, we've come all this way, we're set up. We were in that zone, we just wanted to play.
You keep pushing me the wrong way, till there's nowhere left to turn.
We decided that we'd run around the corner to a tiny little bar called Tap and Tumbler. I remember going up to the bar manager, said, "Hey mate, we're a band, can we play tonight?" And he goes, "Oh, I just so happen actually the openers have pulled out. Do you want the opening slot?" Well, I guess anything's better than nothing, right? Just so happened to slip in, just said, "Okay mate, just to let you know, we were on at Rock City and be cancelled, so there might be a few people coming down." Runs around, "Oh, of course, mate, no, absolutely, right, we'll change it around, right, your headline, all the gear got travelled around, you know, we pull up in this truck outside the Tap and Tumbler, and honestly, I think the guy's eyeballs nearly fell out when he saw the amount of equipment going in. And it was just such a punk rock gig. It was awesome. It was so what The Treatment's about, you know, just loud and sweaty. It was mega. It was really one of the highlights for that tour.
So I'm here with Tag of The Treatment. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, a thing I like to do to kind of start things off and have a look at the origins of a musician, you know, see how things all began. So was there a moment for you where you thought, you know, this is what I want to do, you know, I want to be a musician? Did you have that kind of growing up?
Yeah, completely. So for me, I think there's two different times. There was obviously when I decided. For me, it was seeing Angus perform. That was the first thing that just changed everything for me. I remember I was into a few little bits of music, but music wasn't a huge feature in my life. And I think I was kind of sort of into painting and creating. Like I had that creative side, but music wasn't something. And then I saw a clip of AC/DC performing at Donington, and just seeing Angus with the school uniform, the SG, and the crowd, like that was for me the moment. I turned around and I said to my dad, I said, "Look, I've got to have guitar lessons." "Oh, well, okay, so you know what I mean?" I was like, "No, I need it." So I ended up sharing guitar lessons with my brother. And so it was until we could prove that we actually wanted to play guitar and it wasn't just a passing fad. And that for me, honestly, it's never changed. Like I've never put the guitar down. You know, it's always been like running through my soul. So that was for me kind of wanting to play guitar. And then I think the real point that I turned into a musician was when I met Lowell. So around 16, I got an offer. Well, actually, I remember I emailed him and I begged him. I was like, because he was putting a band together, and I had absolutely no response from the email. So I thought, oh no, okay, well, must be rubbish. So I carried on doing my thing, and it just so happened our original bass player Rick, it did actually work out. So he became what was the first incarnation of The Treatment, and it was called God Sax Man at the time. Yeah. And I knew Rick through school, and of course I was insanely jealous. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, mate, I want to be part of this project. And Rick was coming back with the demos each week. And I was like, this sounds so much better than anything I've even thought about doing. And it didn't work out with the guitarist who was working. So Rick sort of said, look, I know this guy Tag. I headed down to Cambridge, and at that point I really thought I was a good player and knew everything. And I remember getting into it. Was Lowell had this great shed at the time. I remember at 16, I still have these great memories of it. And it was just this shed full of like Marshalls and different bass amps and everything I'd kind of been dreaming of. And I came down with, I was probably carrying some MG 100 at the time or something, do you know what I mean? Some terrible amp. And walked into that room, and all of a sudden, like, I sat down with Lowell, and he really took me under his wing. And that for me was the moment I became what I would consider a musician. And, I just had that person in my life who was showing me this is really how it's done. And then my guitar playing just went from here to just taking off,
I mean, I remember when that debut album came out, This Might Hurt, it felt like that really kind of propelled you guys forward. After that, of course, you went and opened for like Kiss, Alice Cooper, Mötley Crüe. I mean, you were quite a young band as well at that point. I mean, what was that time like for you? Because it seemed from the outside, this is happening quite quickly.
It honestly, if it felt quick from the outside, from the inside, it was like a tornado. It was so incredibly quick. It was incredible, honestly. It was the most amazing time of my life. No, that's not true. It was an amazing time, and all the experiences are incredible. But what's happening for the treatment now is more incredible because the lineup feels completely solid. I think at that point we were so young. And that maybe, I think, hindered us in really taking off that last kind of step. And also the fact we didn't have what most bands have, that kind of time on the circuit to really perfect their show, their art, and their playing. We kind of didn't really have that. We were sort of thrown in the deep end, which was amazing. I mean, I can't complain about it, but I think that was where we maybe needed to have built a more solid foundation on the treatment. But it was honestly, from the inside, it was just incredible. It was just like step after step after step, and just tour after tour, getting bigger and bigger, it was an amazing feeling. And I think I'm a very lucky individual to have been able to experience that.
I mean, going to America, doing all this before. I mean, how old were you guys around then? Like, still in your teens or early 20s?
I remember it was halfway through that tour. There were two of us who turned 21.
Wow!
So I was 20 because we weren't allowed to drink anywhere.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? I remember being on tour. There was a really bizarre halfway point where all of a sudden it became legal what we were doing.
Oh man. I find that, a band that's always having to kind of replace a vocalist is such a difficult thing, isn't it? Because, they're the voice of the band. Of course, now you've got Tom come in and, he's been in the band for a while. But, why do you think that, Tom's been the right guy for you guys? Because, of course, you had tried once prior and that didn't quite work out.
I think so. The treatment, the way it works is, Laurie is like a sixth member for us. He's very involved in the production, the writing, and the way we run the band. He's not only Dan's father, but it's also like he shares a blueprint of what he wants it to be, and we all share that kind of vision. And that was something that I completely got when I came to Cambridge. Like, for me, I met him and I was like, I get what you want to do. He gets what I want to do. We're in the same page. We're like, we know that that's where we want to go. And I think the problem we had with earlier members in the treatment is they didn't share that blueprint. They maybe wanted to go here, and we as a band wanted to go here. And when you work as a band, and I always say this to anyone, it's like having 5 girlfriends. It's very hard. Having multiple girlfriends is not easy. You all need to be pushing in the same direction as a band and as a collective to get to where you want to be, when people start diverting on different paths and wanting to change things, there's a certain amount of change you can do. But if you're not looking at the whole as a collective and as a band going in that direction, it's not going to work. And I think that's the biggest problem we had. Obviously, when Matt left, it was quite a hard time for the band, because around that time, you know, we had a lot of trouble with the label, agents as well. And I think a lot of people maybe lost faith in the band, which was I think it was hard for us, do you know what I mean? But where we had me, Dan, Lowell and Rick at that time, we were very much like a family. We were like, no, we'll you know, this will work, don't worry. I think our time with Mitch, Generation Me was a fantastic album. And I think what Mitch contributed to the band was amazing. But he just wasn't the right guy, to be honest. And we kind of see that period there's some great tracks on that record, but he just wasn't quite the right fit. But again, we were mid-touring when Matt left. So we had that moment of, we didn't have long to find someone. And often with a singer, you need maybe 6 months, maybe a year to write a record to even realize if you like the person or not. Yeah. You know, we had a split decision in about a week. And so obviously it didn't work with Mitch. And then when Tom came along, he was just the right dude. He walked in the room, you know, I sometimes close my eyes on stage and I still hear Matt. It's so strange. Like, his voice is so tonally similar. It's amazing. You know, when he's singing the old songs, I could say that was Matt. You know, there's such a little difference, which I think really helped for translating the old songs. But what Tom brought is a very different energy, a very different vibe. And he wants to do it. He thinks collectively like a band, like the rest of us, which is amazing. And that's why I think this lineup will completely work. And then obviously things with Rick, I mean, Rick's an awesome dude. Like, we never had a fallout. It was just things in his life changed for him and he no longer could be part of the treatment. But we were at a time when it was okay. We weren't touring. So we saw him not long ago. He was in one of the music videos, which is really nice because he's still around. You know, he lives locally to us. But then when Andy joined, that was the moment when I think we found the real solid lineup, you know, and it really, everything clicked completely. And now I feel like the treatment's just elevating itself at a really nice kind of rate. We're not just skyrocketing. We're just each year, we're just going up and up and up, you know, with the records as well. I think we took a massive leap forward. Well, with what you've heard so far, I keep forgetting that you've only heard 3 tracks. So.
Well, you know, I mean, of course, speaking of that, you do have the new album around the corner, Wake Up the Neighbourhood. And you said about this progression here, you know, obviously, I mean, particularly I think since kind of Power Crazy, you know, there's been this kind of, as you mentioned there, there's this steady progression going on here. And, you know, you guys seem always touring, you know, obviously recently toured with Buck Cherry. I mean, what was this kind of process for you guys like this time around with Wake Up the Neighbourhood? You know, did you look at, you know, we want to do things a little bit differently, or did you think, oh, you know, we want to go a bit more in this direction? What was that thought process?
I think the real change wasn't on this record. The real change of the treatment was after Power Crazy. Obviously, we went into lockdown. Now, lockdown for us was awesome. We all got stuck together. We were all getting paid by the government to play music. Now, for me, that just sounds like the dream come true. And then it just so happened, we stumbled upon an old friend who owned a little nightclub around the corner, which is very well insulated for sound, and big Marshalls and loud drum kits. And we ended up with a key. So we, for 6 months, just set up as a band, and it was incredible. And so, because at that point it was me, Teo, Dan, and Lowell all living together. Obviously, we had it was a slight awkward moment of Rick had quit. We hadn't really figured whether, you know, Andy was going to join or what was going on, and we obviously couldn't travel backwards and forwards. So most of Waiting for Good Luck was all written in that period. And Lowell sort of came down one day and he decided that he wanted to record the band live, which was a very, very big change for the treatment. Obviously, you know, with all the records before, we had been multi-tracking everything, where you build on top of, you know, the drums or essentially whatever you want to start with. And that moment switching to recording live, we knew it was going to test the playing, and then from that capture a completely different vibe. And that was the big change, I think, in the way the treatment recorded. And then we took this to Rockfield, which later on after lockdown, that was the first big change in the formula. And I think then that created something amazing for Waiting for Good Luck. And then after that, then taking it to Varda, you know, we decided we wanted a much more modern sound. And that definitely was captured in Varda. But we had a small head start. So I don't know if you know, but we have another project called Mansworth.
Yes.
That Lowell's fronting. So that's like Lowell's baby. And being able to play in that is really cool, because that gives me a very different chance to play guitar. Treatment's it's big chords, huge chords, huge riffs. Mansworth is so intricate, like so many melodies and harmonies and just different ways of playing. But we basically took Mansworth to Varda before the treatment. And that was really the kind of moment where we just looked back and we went, okay, if we're going to take the treatment to the next level, we've got to get a record that sounds as good as this. And that was hence why we took treatment to Varda. And using Dan Weller was just a huge, huge change on the production of the record. So it really, I think it's all added together to a record that now it's just kind of put us in our place of where we go, that is the sound that we were looking for.
Of course, speaking of that, you know, the latest single, When Thunder and Lightning Strikes, you know, it seems like that's been quite a popular one with the fan base, you know, obviously getting some Planet Rock airtime. And I feel, you know, it kind of offers a little bit of a different flavor from your previous works. What was kind of the process, you know, around that song? You know, how did that come about?
I'm trying to remember. So Thunder and Lightning was one of the latest. I think do you know what? It could have even been the last one. It was a riff that had been knocking around for a little while. It was kind of like a Runaways riff, I think. It had a sort of kind of tom beat going on, and it'd been around since, I think, almost Waiting for Good Luck. And it was just, nothing was really happening with it. It just didn't really work. And I remember we were sitting there and Lowell walked in. He was like, right, try that, try this, that. And he was like, what about that? And all of a sudden, within half an hour, we had that jump. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way I love to describe that track. It's just jump. Like, it's so heavy, it's powerful, it's got that massive guitar sound. And then I honestly, I don't really know. I'm trying to remember certain tracks you remember where they started off from. Other ones you don't, they just kind of come together. But that was definitely one of the later ones that came together for the record. And then, but it went in with, I think the only part that had been recorded with the O's or the U's that come in. And then we had nothing else. Like some of the tracks when we went to Varda, you know, you have the structure, the chorus, this, that. We kind of knew where the chorus and where the verse would be, but had nothing for it. And then the development into the kind of heavy section, I think, was something really cool. For me, it's a song that goes to places you wouldn't expect, you know. And like I remember someone said, it has that kind of Kashmir feel in the bridge, which is really cool. Like I guess I'd never really heard it like that, but now I can hear it like that, and I'm like, wow, that is very cool, actually.
Off the new album, do you have kind of a personal favorite, or one that's, you know, you look forward to playing live? Is there like a thing that maybe, you know, keep an eye out for on the album?
I'm torn between a few. I think my personal favorite song on there it's probably a song called I Can't Wait. I Can't Wait No Longer. It's not released yet, and it won't be coming out until the record's out. But for me, it's a kind of ballad. It's a mixture between maybe like Aerosmith, and that kind of like big sounding ballad. It's the first time we've used a piano as well. Recorded part of a grand piano on it, which was just amazing. And for me, it's a really beautiful song, and it was amazing to like kind of sit back and go, oh my God, that just sounds so harmonically beautiful, and has such deep meaning to it as well. But obviously it's quite hard to talk about a song when you haven't heard it. That would be my personal favourite. I think then I'm torn down the middle between 1970s and Let's Wake Up This Town. 1970s for me is the perfect pop song, but not quite my cup of tea. But I remember recording the solo on that, and sometimes you just record something and you just go, where did that come from? That was fucking awesome. And I was just so happy with, you put down something and just, it all comes together, and I was like, that was awesome. But for me, I just think one of the greatest rock and roll songs ever written is Let's Wake Up This Town. It's just, to me, it's everything AC/DC. If I'd heard that as a kid, I know I would have just gone, oh my goodness. That for me is just ultimate. Since getting to play it live, it just, every time it comes up in the set, it just makes me so happy.
It feels like a feel good song. You know what I mean?
It's feel good.
Yeah, I was listening to it before we came on here, and I saw the video, and I think the video matches well. The guy opens the curtains, and you're just there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's awesome. That's exactly what it's about. That was when we were filming the video. That was totally what we did. It was, it's just that it was a house party. That's what the treatment's about. We are a party band. We're not a kind of deep and meaningful band. And that really, I think, that song brings that energy. That video brings that energy, and that's totally how we wanted to portray it.
Of course, we did touch on it earlier in the year. You opened for Buck Cherry, and I did notice, on a couple of occasions, there was a couple of like last minute kind of cancellations for other reasons. But I saw that, in my local area, you guys decided to just go and play in a bar rather than just call it quits. What was kind of the thought process behind it? Because you don't see many bands go, you know what, we're going to play down the road in like an hour, somewhere completely different.
Okay. I mean, there's a very long story, but we'll do long story short or as quick as I can make it. I'm a fabulously long talker. We launched into the tour, and it was going really well. It was a fantastic tour. I think the Buck Cherry Downs are great, and it's not the first time we've opened them. We opened for them before. It was great being on the road with them again. The shows were great. The audiences were fantastic. And we got to Nottingham, which I think must have been maybe 3 or 4 days in. So we're now in our kind of our element. The treatment, I find when we get on tour, first show's good, second show's killer, third show we're like a machine. We're like Blitzkrieg, man. We're going in, demolishing, coming out. We're on at Nottingham. We set up on stage. We sound check. It, of course, is one of the greatest sounding venues on tour, because that's always the way it is when a show's going to be cancelled. And the tour manager comes out and he's like, "No, the show's not going ahead." What do you mean the show's not going ahead? I can hear 500 fans outside. And this is probably 50 minutes before doors, I reckon.
Wow.
And basically, Josh from after soundcheck, his voice, I don't know what happened to him. It basically it went. So we looked at the alternatives, and there was no way of carrying on with the show in Rock City. Like they were basically going to have to cancel it. And for us, it was just, we were like, oh my God, we've come all this way. We're set up. We were in that zone. We just wanted to play. So we decided that we'd run around the corner to a tiny little bar called Tap and Tumbler. And me and Dan, we walked in, and I remember going up to the bar manager, said, "Hey, mate, we're a band. Can we play tonight?" And he goes, "Oh, I just so happen, actually, the openers have pulled out. Do you want the opening slot?" Well, I guess anything's better than nothing, right? Just so happened to slip in, just said, "Okay, mate, just to let you know, we were on at Rock City and it's been cancelled, so there might be a few people coming down." Runs around, "Oh, of course, mate, no, absolutely, right, we'll change it around, right, your headline, da, da, da." And it was really cool because the other band were there and they were so gracious about it and they were so happy to have us on the bill. We quickly flipped it around. All the gear got travelled around. You know, we pull up in this truck outside the Tap and Tumbler, and honestly, I think the guy's eyeballs nearly fell out when he saw the amount of equipment going in. And it was just such a punk rock gig. It was awesome. It was so what the treatment's about, you know, just loud and sweaty. It was mega. It was really one of the highlights for that tour. And I think for all the fans as well, you know, it was amazing seeing, you know, everyone kind of lined up outside Rock City. They then see the announcement, show's cancelled. But as they cancelled it, we then put up, we're doing a free show, and just kind of seeing all these rockers descend around the corner to this kind of little pub was great. So that was amazing. We then had the same problem again in Glasgow, and we saw that a few fans had been like, "Oh, you know, it'd be amazing if you could do, you know, another show if the show doesn't go ahead." And I just think we felt like we owed it to the fans. We were like, do you know what? We're here anyway. If we can make it happen, let's do it. You know, we want to play. The fans, you know, want music. To me, that makes sense. Glasgow was slightly harder. There was a few very questionable venues that we may have ended up playing in. But luckily, right at the last minute, Nice and Sleazy's came through, which was such a great rock bar again. But there was at one moment we were very nearly going to be playing in a jazz club.
Wow.
Which could have been very interesting with seats and all. But we were just like, you know, it was just that kind of mindset between everyone of like, we're going to make this happen. It doesn't matter where we play. If we're busking, we're playing. That's it. And then, and it just throughout the tour, every time they dropped a show, we just carried on. And then we didn't do one gig where if Buck Cherry weren't able to play, that we didn't fill in and do something. And, you know, hats off to the Rubicon boys as well on that show. They were amazing. They came and opened up each of the shows, which was really, really great. So it was, like I said, a bit rough sometimes. You know, I'm sure you know when you go on tour, it can be really disheartening when shows get cancelled or don't go ahead. And sometimes you just got to make the best of it. And actually, for us, I think it was fantastic. You know, a lot of our fans and our friends walked away afterwards just going, fair play. That was something really cool to do.
It was such an unusual thing. I mean, I knew a guy that was at the Nottingham one. I think you know Lee Graham. Do you know Lee?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I'm good friends with Lee. I saw that you guys were playing the show, and I was kind of like, "Oh, I wish I'd have come now." You know,
oh man.
But you know, it's such
definitely been an upgrade for you.
for me, like, it's kind of more my thing, you guys. But it was such an unusual thing. I don't think I've ever seen a band get to a point where they're literally doing the sound check, and then it's like, oh, we can't now do, you know, like normally I've heard, you know, 24 hours or 48 hours, but not like as people are lining up. I don't think I've heard that before. I mean, it's an unusual one.
It was quite savage, like I will say. You know, these things do happen though. Like, you know, obviously as a singer, you get up in the morning, you think you can do it, you're feeling good, you get to sound check, then you don't feel good. Obviously, the decision must have taken a little while after that to make. I think it was probably made harder because it was, you know, one of the biggest venues on the tour. And it's not like it's a legendary place for Rock City, you know what I mean? Maybe they were ignoring whether he could do it or not. But yeah, it was quite a late call because, as I said, I think we had finished our sound check and the support act was set up. So it was pretty savage. But these things happen, man. It's rock and roll, and it's all you could do is just make the best of a naff situation, you know.
But I mean, it feels a bit like you're going to get a second jab at it. In that you guys are you opening for Dead Daisies? I read somewhere recently.
Dead Daisies, it's kind of quite weird. The last two tours we've already done Buck Cherry ones before, and Dead Daisies we did. I can't remember when it last was. It must have been a couple of years ago. We did a short little tour with them, and now they're coming over and doing a really extensive UK tour, which should be great. And I think the treatment it's an amazing animal when it's headlining shows, and it's very different. But I think we're also a very different beast when we're opening up for bands. I think we have a very kind of different attitude, which is really cool. So I like being on both sides. You know, you have when it's a headline show, it's about the treatment. It's about those songs. You're going out and you're trying to prove that these are the greatest songs in the world. When you're as an opener, you're just going out to just prove to everyone that you are the best band, you know. And I think I love the different mentalities and attitudes of how the band goes about it. So I'm really looking forward to the Dead Daisies. I think it's going to be a great run of shows.
Yeah. A question I always like to finish on and ask every guest that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one.
Okay.
If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be? So you've got the keys to the car. You can overrule Laurie on this occasion. You can choose what you want to do.
Unfortunately, I think me and Lowell have a very similar taste because I know it both for us be AC/DC. Although that motherfucker, he already got to do it in the 80s. I'm so jealous. I think for me, I mean, ultimate band is AC/DC, but opening up, I don't know what a show would look like with Pink Floyd headlining and treatment support. I feel like it would be a disaster of a show. But especially maybe if they're doing The Wall, that could be a very odd show.
And with a Hang 'em High. Just run into that.
That would be it. But I think seeing Pink Floyd back in the day would have been a life-changing experience. I don't know how musically epic it would have been. I think you would have just walked to the show and kind of walked away going, my life has been changed. But it has to be, if the treatment were going to support anyone, it would have been AC/DC back in the day.
Are you going to go with classic AC/DC, like Bon Scott AC/DC, or are you going with?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's 100% it's Bon Scott. Anything from I think from the Power Age era on that tour, yeah, that's to me encapsulates music at its finest.
What do you feel?
It's something that speaks to me. Although I think later on, you know, Back in Black is a masterpiece.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. It's one of the greatest albums ever written. And you know, sonically as well, it's perfect. But there's something that the earlier vibe of AC/DC just clicked for me anyway.
I know what you mean. It seems to be, you know, that those that go with AC/DC, everybody's always said Bon Scott era. And what do you feel it? I mean, I feel it's a little bit rawer, it's a little bit rougher, but in this kind of, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something a little bit extra, isn't there?
It's pub rock. It's raw. It's pure energy. I think you can feel the connection. And you can't say that Power Rangers an album is better than Back in Black. No, it's not. You can tell the songs are so much classier on Back in Black, but I will always go and listen to Power Age. Why? Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just you build a connection with maybe that rawness in the music, and that for me speaks. And you know, if I'm going to listen to AC/DC, I'll put on the early stuff. Not to say they haven't got fantastic albums later on. I think for those about to rock and Ball Breaker, I mean, you can see I've got Ball Breaker behind me, is such an underrated album. But I guess when you write something like Back in Black, you kind of going to go backwards because you can't get any better. It's a fact.
It's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah. Anyway, they would probably be my band. However, modern, I would say there's two bands on my horizon at the moment that I love. Nothing But Thieves, I think, are a fantastic new band. I think they are so unbelievably talented, and I think they are writing incredible songs. They've got an amazing songwriter in there. I don't know who it is, but they are phenomenal. And the vocalist is so talented. Also, Dirty Honey, another phenomenal band. I think that would be a really good show to see. And they've kind of got more of that California kind of Aerosmithy kind of rock and roll, where it's a bit more kind of 70s, and then you've got Power at the Treatment. I think the two would just be a wicked combination.
It does feel right. I mean, I first saw them. Oh, they opened for Rival Sons, and then they came back like a year later and just played, because I live near Nottingham. They played. Do you know the Bodega? It's like a really tiny little venue.
We do indeed.
And yeah, and they played there, and it was absolutely rammed, and it felt like this kind of that raw energy that, you know, in a similar kind of way that you guys have. There's this energy, you know, the vocalist is like climbing up on the bar and running across the bar, and it's like this is mad, but it's like I feel like that would work really well. It feels, you know, kind of a good match. You know, so we'll see what we can do. See whether we can convince them.
I think we better try that one.
Yeah, we've got to try. You know, but, thanks very much for joining me anyway, Tag. And of course,
thank you so much.
No. Of course, for those out there that want to grab yourself a copy of Wake Up in the Neighbourhood, you know, you can via the link in the description below. As this airs, it will be about 2 days away from its release, so we'll be closing in.
Were you going to say it would be 2 days old?
No. It'll be right around the corner at this point. So, I mean, you guys, you do vinyl, don't you? We're vinyl people.
We certainly. I personally don't do vinyl. I haven't elevated myself to this perfectionism. It's something I'm working on. You know, when people say they work on things in their personality, no, I'm working on just upgrading my life in general. But we are 100% doing vinyl. It's the first time we've ever done actually a record as on vinyl, which is great. We released a single from the second album as a special on vinyl, which was great, and that was about 10 years ago, and didn't really take off. But this was kind of pre people going back to vinyl, and now I think it's almost like CD is defunct, and people just love vinyl.
Yeah.
So we decided, it's going to be on vinyl, which is great. So that's all again through the Frontier store. You can get hold of that one, which is great. And I'm looking forward to getting my hands on a copy. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, there's something extra. I mean, I used to be one of those people that was like, I don't know about vinyl. And it was kind of like, I'd say, only about 4 years ago. And, you know, everybody goes, oh, you know, it's got this warmer sound. It sounds warmer. And I'm like, how can something sound warmer? And it does. There's something extra. It's really weird. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something, and there's like an added clarity, a bit of character with it. There's something there, you know, and I don't know what it is, but people keep coming back to it. And I think, you know, it has that special quality to it, you know.
Again,
so you have to give it a whirl. You have to try it, man.